Pure love, baby, it's a pure love. 99 and 44 100s, pure love. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back today to talk a little love. As today we're going to dip into, guys, some of my favorite romances in fiction, because I think over time I've got this reputation as a guy who hates romance in my books. I think all fantasy fans really kind of get that reputation. No, I don't like forced romances and things like that, things that aren't earned. There are plenty of romances that I'm actually quite a fan of, and I'm going to talk about some of those. But this isn't just fantasy, guys. This is going to be for all fiction, even though it's going to be skewed a little heavily fantasy because I read mostly fantasy. But there are some other things that I kind of want to talk about. Now, these aren't ranked or anything. These are just a couple of power couples that, really I've always been kind of rooting for those kids to get together. So let's get right into it, guys. If you saw the thumbnail and if you know anything about the channel, you know that I do think that Gone with the Wind is one of the greatest books ever written. So, of course, I have to talk about Miss Scarlett O'Hara and, of course, Captain Rhett Butler. Now, I think that this is a couple that is absolute chaos together. However, you look at them, you say, these are two wild mares that can only tame one another. And it's like you can't imagine them with anyone else. And I think what makes them such a magnetic couple is Red always kind of looks at Scarlett as like attractive because that was like the one woman that he could never really tame. He could have any woman he wanted, except the one that didn't want him. Well, of course, that's the one that he wanted because that's just the type of guy that he was. Then he got Scarlett, who, she really became independent during her time of going from, riches to rags, and having to survive through poverty and coming up, basically starving and being poor and working in the fields again, so that when she does, her and Rhett do finally get together and then she's thrust back into the life of luxury, she isn't able to let go of what it was like when she was thrust into poverty, and so she became so business-minded and pretty much selfish and greedy to the fact that she neglected their relationship and it just fractured beyond repair. And it's one of those that kind of falls under a love tragedy because if you're like me, you don't consider any of the sequel stuff that Miss Margaret Mitchell wrote canon, then, it is very much a love tragedy. But just a great, great couple that, you are definitely, you guys are absolute chaos together, but I want to see you work things out. Next up, guys, let's move to fantasy, the realm of the Cosmere here. And this is one I know that a lot of people don't really like, but I actually really did. I did really like it. I'm talking about from Mistborn. This is going to be Vin and Elend, or Elend for you audiobook guys. I always said Elend. Yes, I know it's weird to some people. They're like, you don't say anything else with that word. I don't know, guys. It's just how I read it. Anyway, I like that relationship because it just kind of, I love with Vin. She basically goes from like that My Fair Lady kind of storyline. That's something I think that has really kind of worked well. And then you got Elend as a guy I can see like myself, that no matter where he went, he always had a book. In case things got boring, he always had a book to read. He's bringing a stack of books with him. I think even when Vin first sees her, she's like, "Who's the dork with the books?" So I think with that, I just really liked those two characters. I don't know as much as like I really, really wanted them to get together, but then the ending happens the way it ends, and I'm just absolutely oh my god, So it's one of those that over the course of time, this one might be a little bit of a YA relationship, but I do feel like it was earned. It wasn't a, hey, they saw each other and they were magically in love. There was a growing period getting to that. And that's something that I can appreciate. So I think that's the best romance that Mr. Sanderson's done yet up to this point. And so that's why I picked that one. Next up, this one's actually kind of recent, but it's just one that I just could not get over. When I was reading The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne, there are numerous romances in that story, and I think most of them are good, but the one that really just had me like, the butterfly eyelashes when I was reading it was Macklin and Fidel. Every single time there was any kind of romance scene between those two, I was just eating it up. And most times in modern fantasy, when that happens, because they always try to do some like cringe sex scene or something like that, John never does that. He never does that. And he just had good dialogue between these two, and it was just like believable that what these two went through together, you could see this happening, and it was just delightful. I just loved every minute that these two spent together. And that is probably the hardest modern fantasy shipper that I have ever been while reading that series was for those two. I thought it was just beautiful. And yeah, I couldn't get enough of it. So yeah, more like that, guys. Modern fantasy writers, check out Faithful and the Fallen and see that's at least for me, that's what I want to see over you forcing some awful sex scene. I'm talking to you, Peter V. Brett, talking to you, Evan Winter. Anyhow, let's move along here. How about some King? You know, I'm not going to do a list like this without Stephen King. Now, he gets a rep as a guy who can't write a romance, which I think is a bunch of bullpucky. That's a fun word, ain't it, bullpucky? But I don't even know where I got that word from. They just kind of pulled it out of the ether there. So how about that? It's always a learning experience here for me as well. I think what he did with 11/22/63 was something that I did not think he had in him. I think it was absolutely the most beautiful love story that you can imagine. Star-crossed lovers kind of thing. And this one goes through time and space. And of course, I'm about Jake and Sadie. This is, sure, it can be a little idealized. This is King romanticizing what life was like in the 50s and 60s since he was there. And you know what? It was just stunning what he did. And I still look at Jake and Sadie and say, that's relationship goals right there. And it has one of the most beautiful endings I have ever read in my life. And to this day, I talked about it in my video where I said books that make me cry. You can still see in my hardcover back there the teardrops on the pages while I was reading the final moments of that book, because it is just an absolutely incredible romance book. Yes, I know there's time travel. I know there's the assassination of John F. Kennedy in there. The romance is what that book is about. It is a romance book. It's a book that I did not think that Stephen King could write. So I love that couple so much. And I think the universe I spent the most time in my life, guys, is going to be that galaxy far, far away. Can you see that? Is that coming? Here, about this side. I love me some Star Wars. I love the Star Wars EU. I've talked about it numerous times on this channel. And the romance in that EU book isn't Han and Leia, because Han and Leia are the original movies are still there, obviously. But the one that grows over the course of the EU into something really, really special is Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade. This is your essential power couple. Hate each other. Well, it's kind of one-sided. When they first met, the reader, you hate Mara when she first shows up. You grow to love her, and then Luke grows to love her. And it's just one of those kind of things that you say it, and you're like, it's inevitable. You two are going to get together. You just don't know it yet. And it doesn't wait too long, but it doesn't give it to you too soon. It makes you wait for it, makes you want it. And then when it happens, just perfect timing. And that's what made Timothy Zahn just, besides George Lucas, I think it's like the wizard of the Star Wars universe, because he got what made these things work in creating a character like Mara Jade, which was definitely the yin to Luke Skywalker's yang. Just such a great character. And who doesn't love a badass redhead? I mean, I know that I do. And I know now that Luke Skywalker does. So I love those two characters so much. As I do for the next one, when I really went through my run of the Dresden Files, I got a lot of mixed reactions to Karen Murphy as a character, and I didn't know how I was going to feel about it. And I realized I went through the same range of emotions. I didn't like her. I grew to accept her. Then I liked her, and then I ended up shipping her and Harry to the point to where I love this couple so much. So it was a couple that it might have Ross and Rachel it, where it did wait a little too long for it to happen, but when it does happen, it's so satisfying, guys. It's so good. I love how it eventually happens in the series, and yeah, that's a character that I can't say much more about without getting into spoilers. And I don't want to spoil that series for you guys if you haven't. But it's just a beautiful journey watching those two characters from where they start, at the beginning to where they end up. And it's very, very well done. And I don't know if Jim had this planned the whole time. I don't know how much he decided to do on the fly, like what he was planning on doing with this relationship. But even though I think the fact that I got to binge the series, at least to where it's at now, I think that helped a bit. I didn't have to wait the years between the books and things like that. So it seemed fine to me because I didn't have to wait so long because I was reading, 2 or 3 of those books a month. But yeah, I don't know if it felt like it was too long or not from people who are reading the series in real time. But that's a couple that I will always stump for, as I will for the next one. And you got to go all the way to Mars for this one. I'm talking about John Carter and Deja Thoris from Barsoom by Edgar Rice Burroughs. And I know a lot of people will immediately jump on Deja's just a damsel in distress. And I'm like, I can tell you didn't read it, because that's not true. I know anything that is as old as something that Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote, well over 100 years old here, people are always going to assume, well, women didn't have a place in sci-fi or fantasy at the time. Edgar Rice Burroughs didn't listen to that noise. He was very, very forward-thinking on these things. Yes, look, I will say it up front. It might get me some heat. I am perfectly fine with my heroes rescuing people. I don't care about the genders. I am fine with my heroes rescuing people. But here's the thing, guys. If you really want to kind of compare body counts here, Deja rescues John quite a few times too. So I really think it really bucks the trend of that, classic literature being like, oh, well, it was just very, very patriarchal and, women didn't have a place in it. It was not true with Deja Thoris. She was a badass warrior chick who was a badass scientist as well. She was just awesome character. Sure, didn't help that she was just drop dead gorgeous, so that's what helped these two kids get together really, really quick. So yeah, it might have seemed like it at first, if you only read John Carter of Mars, the first book, I think that you might actually or it's a Princess of Mars, sorry, you might actually just kind of be like, it does seem like, hey, she's beautiful, he's mysterious, so they're just in love. It might seem like that, but you keep reading the series over time, you'll see that they really do have a well-developed relationship, and I do appreciate it. I think that's probably like the first couple of sci-fi, I think, really, if you really want to get into it there. It's really, really great stuff. So I appreciate those characters and that relationship. The next one will kind of be weird to some people. I know anytime I mention Harry Potter on this, people just start flipping tables for one reason or the other because it's children's books or whatever. For me, guys, going through that series and being like one of the people who was like, oh, Harry and Hermione, no, God, it's like dating your sister. Gross. He would much rather date Ron's sister, right? So let's talk about Ron and Hermione Granger. That's a relationship that very much seems like real coming of age. When you're 11, you're like, ugh. Then you're like, by the teenage years, you're like, I love her, but not like that. Or I love him, but I'll always kind of be like a brother. And then one day you realize, I think I love them more than that, but I don't know how to process this. And so I don't feel like it was one of those things where, well, it was the last book, she felt like she had to do it. I felt like it was well planned out that she was going to get Hermione and Ron together. And it was earned. It was well earned. And when that moment finally happens, I thought it was great. So great coming of age style story of how a relationship can develop from we don't like each other to we're good friends, we're best friends. I don't think there could ever be more of this. Maybe there can, but I don't want to mess up the friendship to, you know what, you only live once, let's go for it. So I think it's a great, great example of how you go through those stages of life. So I'll always really be happy with how that relationship worked out. Another one I like is from Red Rising. And as much as I've said I don't really care for Darrow and Mustang in that story, because I always thought Darrow should have got with Victra, I wouldn't change for the world that it's Severo Albarca and Victra Aljulii. I think those two are just a perfect match, because Victra can be quite headstrong and Severo can be quite, the goofball, but also, I think they kind of keep each other's, maniacal ragings in check. They keep each other balanced, keep each other grounded, I think. So I think that, both of them probably could have strayed to a really, really bad path without each other. So I think those two getting together really did make their characters more likable. And I think that everybody likes Severo for different reasons, I think. But you could also see that there was maybe a little bit of madness inside of that character. And with Victra, yeah, you could really, really see it. And I think they really, like I said, they made each other, normal. I think as normal as they can be. So that's a couple I'll always be happy to see, and realize now that I need to trust the process, that Pierce Brown knows what he's doing, because he definitely got that one right, and I was wrong, and I admit it. Next up, First Law. You would not think of the First Law as being a series that has romance in it. And it's kind of weird that you don't really feel like it does, but I think I just love Sandan Galacta and Artie West. And I think the reason I like it is just because it's so unexpected. It seems so forced, but then you realize this is actually quite great, and you see more of that in the sequels and stuff about how much these two actually do care for each other, and it's so unexpected and so well done. It's only the way that Joe could do something like this to make a couple like that work out. And it's nothing like you would expect. I can't really explain what it is. I love about this couple. I just always do. I've always just really went back to, I really appreciate how the way that they care about each other. It's just so unique. So if you know, you know. How about Far from the Madding Crowd here? I'm going to go back to a little bit of classic literature. Baspeda Everdeen and Gabriel Oak. That's just one of those that's, your one's a low class, one's a high class, and then you kind of flip roles. and you know, kind of see how that works out. One's in love with the other one's not, and then it's kind of the roles are reversed, and then you got like, you know, a mysterious death and things like that. I know it's like decades old, it might be 100 years old. I don't even know how old that book is. I read it in high school, but it's just one of those that I feel like I still don't want to spoil for you because there's so many surprises in that story. But with those two, it was just one of those like, we two stop acting like idiots and just get together. And, you know, then when you think it's going to happen, does it? Well, read and find out, you know. So I can't really say too much about that because I don't like spoiling too much. I feel like it's already spoiling, telling some people that some of these people get together with this. But, you know, I don't know how else to do this kind of video, so I'm going to kind of do it that way. But with that one, I don't want to spoil the story beats for you there. But Far From the Madding Crowd, very, very underrated book. And I'm sad that I didn't put it on my my classics that I love video because I do love that book. I think it's a really, really fun story. I'd love to revisit, I think. And I don't know if fun's the right word for it, but I did like this relationship quite a bit. Should I talk about some Princess Bride? Well, as you wish, because who wouldn't want to have Wesley and Buttercup on this list? It's that tale of I would come back from the dead for you. Well, you know, metaphorically, Wesley does it once, and then physically, he does it a second time. So I think that really does apply well here. So just basic fairy tale, true love kind of story, guys. I mean, sometimes you need something like that. You don't need to know everything about these guys' past and everything like that. You just realize one day you just look over at someone, you realize, oh my God, I love that person. And I did not realize it until just now. And I think that story really captures it so well, and how there is nothing that you would not do for another person. No bridge you would not cross, even death, for that person. So it's a magnificent story, I think, that has aged incredibly well. And I know most people probably know it more for the movie than the book. But the romance is just as great, if not better, in the book than it is in the movie. And I think that you should do it the service that it is owed and read it if you have not. I should reread that and do a review. I've got a Dread Pirate Wesley costume. Maybe I can wear it during the interview. I'm not really that guy, but I would do it for that one. How about something recent, guys? I just talked about it when I reviewed it recently for the Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell. Derval and Kynwyn were two characters I did not know that I needed to be together until it happened. And I was like, I didn't know I needed this, but now I love it. I love this relationship. So unexpected. So you just didn't think it would happen, because not a lot of happy things happens to these characters in this story. So when that one actually happened, it isn't quite storybook, you know, because this is historical fiction. Bernard Cornwell's not here to provide you with your shiny, happy, they live happily ever after kind of story. But what he does with those two characters, I think, was a really, really fun journey, and it was earned. It was earned, and when it happened, I was really, really about it. And seeing how their love persevered through some of the darkest stuff was beautiful. So I really did like that one. One that was kind of short-lived, and if you've read it, you know why. The Dark Tower, I have to talk about Roland Deschain and Susan Delgado. Now, they only have one book together, you know, because it is told in a flashback storyline. But it's another one of those where people be like, but Mike, you say you don't like insta-love. But I also remember, guys, what it was like being a teenager and boom, head over heels, like immediately. It can happen. And with the way that he describes it, it was always oh my God, these two are gaga for each other, not in the Stephenie Meyer, this person's a dickhead, and this one's like, I love you. You know, and it wasn't like that. I think these two were just absolutely just so kind, and obviously Roland is super, super chivalrous. You know, he's basically an Arthurian knight, basically, with a handgun, you know, and she's just in this, you know, terrible town where she's being treated as an object and, you know, for political gain. And you can understand why these two fell in love so quickly. And it's a great, great story with a tragic, horrible ending, because Stephen King does know how to hurt us. He really does. So I know I've got Stephen King on here twice. So people that say that Stephen King can't write romance, you haven't read Stephen King, apparently. Yeah, he writes some stuff that's like, whatever. But when he gets the ones that count, man, it is a grand slam. And I would definitely put, you know, Jake and Sadie and Roland and Susan on this list for that reason. How about one more before I go, guys? And I know another person that gets told they can't write any romance is Robert Jordan. But I will say I do bust out the heart emoji eyeball thing when it comes to Nynaeve Almira and Lan Mandragoran in The Wheel of Time, because I do love the journey that these two characters go on together. Now, here's the thing. In book 1, it's like out of nowhere. Oh, I love you. What? I love you too. Like I was like, oh God, where did that come from? How did that happen? And I know that Wheel of Time fans, Wheelies, they'll really jump on and be like, well, if you look at this and this, you can see it was. No, shut up. It didn't. He just put them together because, hey, I got all these characters. I need a romance in my book somewhere. But over the course of the story, it becomes really, really great. And by book 11, it is so powerful and so magnetic that you can't get enough of it. So I will always love those two characters. And yeah, I couldn't think of any other two that I would have preferred to end up together than Lan and Nynaeve, because they are one of the true power couples of fantasy. And guys, that was I think I had 15 there. I probably could do some more, and I'm sure this list is going to be open to more. So I hope this narrative that I hate romance will die, because it's not true. I just don't like YA romance, guys, because they never work for it. They never make you work for it, like at all. Now, I know that's a broad generalization, and I don't want to get the legions of YA fans that watch this channel, because I know there's a lot of them, right, to come after me on that. I'm just saying that for me, love triangles and forced love, that just instant love, it drives me crazy. It's something I've never been able to get into. So I know that sounds a little hypocritical, because some of the ones that I mentioned here, but I felt like I did explain why they worked for me over other things. But again, as always, guys, I would like to hear about some of the couples that you guys like. Who do you really root for to get together in some of your books? No wrong answers, always. I would love to hear. So drop in the comments, guys, and let me know, because love is in the air.